So Ms. Marvel, there was a trailer. Um, and she's a Green Lantern. We talk about this before, but we say that every podcast. We talk about this before because we have tons of our conversations away from the podcast, of course. But uh she's a Green Lantern. They changed her powers. In the comics, she has the ability to embiggen and stretch her limbs, not dissimilar to Mr. Fantastic, but unlike Mr. Fantastic, she can also like increase her size, like Ant-Man. So they decided to change it. People are assuming to make it visually different from Mr. Fantastic when he eventually comes, as well as Ant-Man, who already is there, who can also turn giant. So I kind of get that. Here's the thing though. They didn't just visually change how her powers look to make it stand out. They completely changed her powers. From a VFX standpoint, I can understand CGI standpoint, I can understand that energy is probably easier to do than human skin, and that human skin might look weird stretching and growing and things like that, and might bother some people. But they could have just had her stretching and embiggening powers look like energy instead of full on making her make constructs and separate from her body like a Green Lantern. Like if you made her extend her arm, but it's energy instead of her actual arm extending, I could get that. But that's not what they did. She's a Green Lantern. And from the standpoint of people who have read the comics, which I've read the first volume, but I don't remember much of it, and I didn't like it a lot. But for people who have, the reason they aren't a big fan of this change is because a big part of her story was kind of essentially growing comfortable with her skin, who she looks, who she is, and what her powers are, which can kind of be to a lot of people kind of gross because it can look weird, of course, when a human is stretching and growing. And a big part of her arc was accepting that. And it also being kind of like an allegory for her being a Muslim woman in America. So a lot of people are upset that that arc won't be able to be done properly because her powers have significantly changed and being made this pretty purple, glowy, sparkly power that's much more pleasing to for like the majority of people's eyes. And a lot of people don't like that. But her powers come from a bracelet, which opens the door up for the bracelet potentially breaking and them actually going the route of making her an inhuman. And then she actually has her stretching powers. So, before, like, what's your opinion on it?
Well, you know my opinion because we had a lengthy conversation about it when the trailer first dropped, and I'm not a fan of how this works at all. She is literally a Green Lantern, but with a bracelet instead of a ring, and I think that's ridiculous, and she can't fly. But honestly, at this point, what's one more power that she doesn't have, right? So, oh my god, so much I do not like about this. The show looks decent at the very least.
Yeah, the show looks like it'll be fun, which
But the powers were such an unnecessary change and really does defeat the purpose
yeah.
of Miss
So,
Marvel's original story.
it's clear why we don't like that change, but to be more on a more positive note, there have been a lot of people, especially young Muslim women, who have been like, excited for the show and happy for the show for that representation, and that is the best thing that's come out of this trailer. And like I said, the show looks like it'll be good. This change we feel is unnecessary, and it definitely is. People who have read those comics and love the character in the comics don't like that change, which is understandable. But the show will probably still be pretty good. If I'm being honest, I haven't been particularly impressed by any of the Marvel shows so far. I'm hoping Moon Knight will be the first, but we'll see.